Hey guys, welcome back to Trail North Podcast. I am your host, John Dowd, and today with me I have Jacob Wilkins. So Jacob specializes in fishing for big fish. Currently, he is a social media manager, deckhand, and cameraman for Idaho's largest fishing outfitter, Jones Sport Fishing. He spent 3 years as a land-based shark fishing guide in Florida, where he worked for Coastal Worldwide. He has fished Alaska, Canada, Mexico, Europe, and all across the U.S. His personal bests are a 10-foot sturgeon and a 12-foot dusky shark. He has caught 7 species of sturgeon and 14 species of shark. Though he has gone all over the world fishing, he said he never gets tired of chasing sturgeon in his home state of Idaho. Welcome, Jacob. How's it going?
Good. How are you, John?
Dude, I am awesome. We've been wanting to try to organize this one for a little while. But just you do kind of a similar thing that I do, but for the fishing side of stuff, managing social media and everything, which we could totally get into a little bit. But why don't you tell us a little bit about some of that side of your work, and then we'll get into the fish stuff.
Yeah. So I started as a guide for Coastal Worldwide after graduating from University of Idaho with a degree in fisheries resources. When I was getting that degree, that's when I met John when we were at a survey at Noxon Reservoir. And that's how we connected. So post getting my degree, I ended up moving to Florida, and I was a land-based shark fishing guide for 3 years. That's what got me into the fishing industry initially. Then I moved back to Idaho because I reconnected with an old friend from college, and her and I started dating, and she ended up being my wife. So I would say that was well worth it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was an amazing experience. I came back to Idaho, got back into sturgeon fishing. I ended up meeting up with a guy named Joe Weisner who worked for the outfit known as Jones Sport Fishing, and him and I started fishing together. We got along really well. I started shooting him promos, which ended up doing extremely well. And then things on the social media side started taking off from shooting those promos. The outfit that he worked for saw how well those were working and decided to bring me on to manage their social medias as well. So now here I am, fresh off the boat from ICAST as well. I got to go down to Florida to the US's largest fishing convention. Excuse me. I got to go down to Florida to the US's largest fishing convention, and I just represented my personal social medias, which was Rip and Run Outdoors, and made some good brand deals with brands like Akuma. So we have some exciting stuff starting there. But a day in the life really is I'm up at 4 or 5 a.m. I go out on the boat and I film most of the day. I sit right at the front of the boat. I interview customers. Um, and just try to get enough film that when everyone watches online, they can kind of walk through the whole day and what we do. I'll film crappie trips, bass trips, walleye trips, sturgeon trips. And in about a week, I go up to the coast to Astoria to Buoy 10 for a week to film all of the salmon stuff. So that's kind of just drinking from the fire hose, a quick spiel about everything that I do on the social media side.
You kind of live from the fire hose, it sounds like, man.
Yes. Yeah. So during the year, I work as a behavioral interventionalist. So I work with special needs children is my regular 9 to 5 during the year. Over the summer, I usually pick up any extra days just serving tables at night. And then I run my personal social medias as well as the Jones Sport Fishing social medias. So
Wow.
I stay busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And be sure to share with me some of the links to those. We'll put them down below for people. But your passion is, as we said at the beginning, going after huge fish, primarily sturgeon and shark. It sounds like. What? How did you get into going after? I guess sturgeon is probably where you got your start with big fish, is it?
Yeah. So I grew up in small town Salmon, Idaho. Um, and my dad raised me just fishing for trout, fly fishing really, for West Slope cutthroat, for rainbows, the occasional bull trout. And I remember I moved down to Twin Falls, Idaho to get my associate's degree. And that was the first place I ever ran into white sturgeon. I hiked down to a place called Pillar Falls, and I watched a guy catch like a little 3-footer. And to me at the time, that was just absolutely massive. I'm like, wow, that's huge. I really want to catch one. And that kind of lit a fire underneath me. Um, and I started talking to my family, asking them for advice who lived in the area, telling them I wanted to buy some gear, and had some people tell me that it probably wasn't going to work and it was really hard to catch them and that it was possibly a waste of time. Um, so I remember I saved up $150 and bought my first setup. And I had a guy in my biology class who sat next to me, and I noticed he had a sturgeon decal on his laptop. His name was Kason Lewis, and I asked him if he went sturgeon fishing. He was like, "Yeah, I got a spot. I get into him here and there." And so he agreed to take me out. I went out. My first night, I caught an 8-footer, and
Oh my,
I was hooked ever since. Kason
yeah.
and I fished together for a long time. I ended up meeting with another one of my good friends, Nick's Definition, and him and I fished together a long time. It was with Nick where I popped my first 9-footer land based. And him and I fished really hard over the summer when college was out. We would hike 2 miles down into the spot and we would camp on the riverbank all weekend, just sleep on the dirt and have like a little brush fire and fish all through the day and all through the night. And we would do that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then Monday morning, I would wake up at 6 a.m. and hike back up to my car, hop in my car, and drive back to CSI for my 8 a.m. class. And then finally get some rest after those days. But, it was just a time for me to be young, dumb, and broke and fish all that I possibly could.
Oh man, I have a camera a warning on my thing. We're gonna pause real quick.
No worries.
All right, sorry about that. I just, like I said, we're flying by the seat of our pants here at Trail North. Just all the gremlins. Anyways, dude, that sounds a lot like my college experience, but you were fishing and I was doing survival stuff. So we'd go out for the weekend and suffer. So let's see. At that point, what was your personal best?
I think my personal best it was either 9'2" or 8'10". I'll have to go back and look at the footage. But I think it was somewhere around 9'2" or 8'10". Um, and um, for sure, the first land based 9-footer, because there's one fish, and honestly, like the pictures we had of it weren't great. I look back and you can see it was a really nice one. But we might have gotten a little excited with the tape measure. There's an old
Yeah.
GoPro video. I'll have to go look and reference, but for sure, absolutely 100% for sure, the first uh, true land-based 9-foot that I caught was up by U of I with my friend Zach Bush. And we went out and fished a completely new stretch of river for the first time and ended up hanging into, I believe it was like a 9-foot one with a 47-inch girth. And we had to chase it, I don't know, I'd probably say half a mile down the bank.
Man.
And it was in the middle of a blizzard too. We were gonna take like his little car out to where we were gonna fish, and we got like 8 inches of snow in one night. And so we ended up swapping to my truck, and his brother was supposed to come, but his brother was like, it's snowing too bad. We're not going to come. So it ended up just being me and him. And we were driving out there, and we ended up finding an old rancher that like drove off the road. So we scooped him up, drove him to his house, and then kept on going down the road. And yeah, we fished for about an hour and a half before we hung into our first like actual land-based giant. And from there, we made probably, I want to say, 20 other trips out to that area, and only caught fish on 4 of those trips. But our smallest fish was 8 foot one. So I think all the fish we got out of that area was a 9 foot one, a 9 foot flat, a 9.3, an 8 foot eight, and an 8 foot one. And the 8 foot eight and the 8 foot one we doubled up on.
Wow. Wow. So so many questions. What's like a normal, I don't want to say normal. What's a good size fish that most people would be happy with when it comes to sturgeon?
I would say 7 foot is like the breaking point between like an okay fish and a decent fish. Like most people, if they catch a 7 foot sturgeon, they're over the moon.
Yeah.
For someone like me or the one of the guys I work with in film for Joe Weisner, like he catches probably 500 7 foot fish in a year, if not more.
Wow.
So like on the guide side of things, you almost have to like make yourself happy for the customer, because you have to realize that like for them, that's their bucket list, like that's their lifetime fish. But
Yeah.
for someone who chases the species on the regular, it's like 7 foot is a decent fish, 8 foot is a nice one, and the 9 foot like and up class is the trophy. That
Wow.
is like the coveted one that people search for quite a bit. And Joe, I think, has caught 17 9 footers this year. He's
Jeez.
one of like the most productive sturgeon fishermen I've ever seen.
What's so there is there a Boone and Crockett type thing for sturgeon like there is in the hunting world?
Not really, just because most of the records are ones that they caught and killed for the record
Hmm,
book. And so
sure.
like Washington and Oregon where the biggest ones
We're
are.
talking back in like the last century type thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's where most of the old records came from. Nowadays, since it's all catch and release, a lot of places don't keep track of it. Like
Yeah.
Washington and Oregon were some of the biggest in the world, I would argue. They don't have a catch and release record, and there they also like heavily, heavily frown upon landing them on the bank. Like even if you hook one in your boat, drive to the bank while it's still fighting, and finish fighting it on the bank, like you will still probably get a call from the game warden.
Wow. Why?
So
Just
like,
because it's such a protected fish?
yeah, and I don't think it needs to be that strict. Like if you look at the Oregon legality, it just says must be released immediately upon capture. Um, and so I think if a fish cop came after you for something like that, they have no way of having that hold up in court.
Yeah.
Uh, but I have heard of a lot of guides out there getting calls consistently from game wardens about people landing fish on the bank and taking pictures with them. Um, so there isn't really a white sturgeon world record except up in Canada. I think the like on the Fraser River they keep like a catch and release record, which I believe is around like 11 feet 8 inches to the fork.
Wow.
Like down here, we just do total length, but up there they usually measure to the fork.
Wow. So
Um,
here's a question. What's what is the biggest you've ever heard of confirmed, history, modern, whatever? Um, because there's a lot of those old photographs of like sturgeon that people caught, and we can even pull up some of those pictures, where obviously they're modern Photoshop or whatever.
yeah, I believe that the biggest confirmed I saw was beluga caught out of the Black Sea over in Europe, and that one was around 22 or 23 feet. Um, Completely different species than what I chase, plus it was oceanic. As far as the whites, like where I'm at, the largest I personally have ever seen confirmed would be like 10 foot 7. Um, like a lot of times, like the guides will pull up an exceptionally large fish out on the Columbia, and they'll just hold it next to the boat and be like, "Yeah, that's large." Um, like
This is this is one of the ones I'm talking about. That's a pretty famous photo.
Yeah, there's one where the head is facing like a different direction. But a lot of these, um, like you'll see in old cafes up in Oregon, like a lot of the ones of them hanging. The one that's top row, second to the left, is actually hanging up at a gas station in Hagerman. I've seen that picture quite a bit.
This one right here.
Farther over to the left, more on the in the search bar.
Oh, in the search bar.
Yeah. Um,
Oh,
but it's really hard to say like what is actually out there. Like confirmed that I've seen personally 10'7". A lot of people will send me pictures and be like, "Oh, it's an 11 footer," but you never see the tape on it. Um, and
yeah,
there's Idaho guys that have like caught like a 9.5 footer and like posted a picture of it and said it's 9.5 foot, and then when you meet them in person, they'll tell you it's 12.
sure. Well, yeah, fishing, big fishing stories, right?
Yeah. So I mean like I said, there's the one on the Fraser, that was 11 foot 8 inch to the fork. So that's probably a 12-foot fish overall. And they're an honest guide service. They always show up with their receipts. And then as far as Oregon and Idaho, like I'm fairly sure that there has been like 11 or 12-foot fish caught in Oregon and Washington. They
Mhm.
just never have the tape on it. Like they don't show up with the evidence to prove
Yeah.
actually how big that fish was. And in Idaho, I believe that the largest fish that's been caught is like 10 foot 5.5 inches.
Wow. How long do sturgeon live? They grow until they die, right?
Yeah, so and that's a really interesting question because a lot of people just go based off of size and they're like, roughly that fish is like X amount of years old. But the Idaho Fish and Game just released a very interesting study where they did research on the Lower Granite Reservoir versus the Hells Canyon River system, which Hells Canyon dumps down into Lower Granite. But they found a 30-year-old fish in the Hells Canyon River stretch that was 3 feet long. But then they've
Whoa.
also, down in the Lower Granite Reservoir, they've found it was either a 4 foot sturgeon that was 5 years old or a 5 foot sturgeon that was 4 years old. One of the two.
Whoa.
Um, but they're finding that the growth rates in these reservoirs, where there's a much larger food source, that these fish grow exponentially larger. So when the food is plentiful, they'll generally shoot up to like 5 or 6 foot. They'll shoot up to sexual maturity in about, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And then after that, once they hit sexual maturity, the growth rates slow way down. And that's where you get like the 1 to 3 inch growth rates per year.
Wow. Interesting. So like that's I mean, when we had a much more productive environment up in a lot of these fisheries, historically, those fish really could have been massive.
Yeah. So, I mean, just doing mental math. So, say it takes 6 years for a fish to reach sexual maturity in a uninhibited river system where they can be anadromous and travel. So 6 years for sexual maturity, that puts them around 6 feet, I would say 5 to 6 feet. And then if you keep the growth rate steady at 3 inches a year, that means that every 4 years it grows a foot. So let's see, 4 times 6 is 24. So really a 30-year-old fish, you might be like in 30 years, you might be getting 10, 11 foot fish if my
Wow.
math is right. But I was a fisheries degree, not a math degree.
Yeah, yeah. I like that word, anadromous. What did you say?
Yeah, an anadromous meaning travels between fresh and salt water.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, they are, aren't they? Yeah.
In an uninhibited river system, they do. Like they used to go all the way up to like the middle fork of of the Salmon River. And I think that there's still some in there, but now, I mean, there's some just on the Snake River. I think there's 13 to 14 dams,
Wow.
which is a lot for the Snake. And then you get into the ones on the Columbia as well. Um, so like what our river system could be is the Fraser. You look at the Fraser, and they have hundreds of thousands of like 5 to 7 foot fish. It sounds like from people I've talked to that have actually gone up and fished it, is there's no shortage of sturgeon, but there's so many like 5 to 7 footers, it's hard to find those massive 10, 11, 12 footers.
Yeah.
Um,
Do
but
they
like
go ahead? Sorry.
because the river system is so productive, you can grow those fish that are of that mythical size.
Hmm.
And so the stretches of Idaho, I think that we just can't grow them as big. The river's dammed up. It's not as productive as it once was. And it's not getting those nutrient doses that it used to get from the salmon and steelhead swimming up.
Wow, interesting. So, do they grow um, more predominantly lengthwise or girthwise at a certain age? Because, obviously some of these are like, snakes. They're thin and long, and some of the other guys get huge circumference wise. What's that about? Is that nutrient what they're eating? Is that they grew faster, younger? How's that work out?
I definitely think that's food source. I think a lot of the fish that we get in Idaho are fish that were just here when the dams were put in. And some of them will find a home stretch and stay there, and on occasion they'll migrate, and others are highly migratory. The best example that I could give you is in Idaho. You can tell when you catch a sturgeon, you can 100% tell where if it spends the majority of its time in a river or in the reservoir. The reservoir fish overall are much girthier. They're much healthier. They have a very pale color to them. They get that light gray sheen with a whole bunch of white spots, and their scoots, their scales tend to be wider. Their fins are cleaner, and they're just a bigger, healthier fish overall. Versus the river fish, they tend to be darker. They're that brown black color. Their scoots are more worn down. You can see their fins are rubbed down from always being on the rocks. And overall, the river fish tend to be a lot skinnier as well.
Interesting. That's just like fishery fish when you're doing trout fishing. When we were on the Missouri, just I guess south of Craig, we had right below the dam, you'd get a lot of these fishery fish that look like mutant fish, and they were like that. They were long and skinny, and they would have their fins all worn down and weird colors and everything. But that's interesting because because they stock with those fish. But that's interesting to hear that the river fish with the sturgeon are kind of that way. And also you were talking about like the mythical sizes of these fish. I've been kind of playing around with where this channel will go eventually, and one of the things that I've played around with is doing like supplemental videos with some of these guests. One of the ones is a guy who is a good friend of mine from high school who's a custom knife maker, and I was thinking about going to, I think, Indonesia to look at some of the smiths that work on what is that called? Crisp blades, the ones with the swirlies, like go in there and just like, I would love to see, and I'm sure a lot of, because his is like the most popular video on here so far. And just his reaction, I think people would love to see, and like how they do it and his feedback. I think that would be something interesting. But with you, I was thinking about, and I think we might have talked about this years and years ago. There's a buddy of mine in Thompson Falls who is convinced that there are still sturgeon up in there. It's upriver from Noxon, right? And then you have the Flathead Lake monster, up in the Flathead Lake that a lot of people think is a sturgeon that's still alive. Did you think that's even possible?
It definitely could be, because there's a lot of places here in Idaho that they survive that they shouldn't.
Mm,
There's a few creek systems that the fish, we have no idea how they got in there, and there's not much of a food source for them, but they are in these small, shallow creeks where they've survived for, as far as I know, the past 5 years is how long they've been in there, maybe longer.
wow.
Um, and the creeks are so shallow that you can go and sight fish for them in there. And that's I mean, sturgeon are a cold water fish. Like that environment is not conducive to that fish, but they're alive, and they've been alive for, years. And I think it's just because they're a hardy fish. Um, and I think that they have the ability to either their metabolism, or they just naturally have such a slow metabolism that they can go long periods of time without eating. So if we have fish in Idaho that were here when the dams were put in, I wouldn't put it past that there's fish that have made their way um, into Montana that were there before the dam got put in, and
Yeah.
they're still there. And the thing about it is, like, if you're in Montana and you're fishing for them, like, the only thing you might have somewhat of a realistic chance of landing one on is a paddlefish setup, but you're probably not going to hit a sturgeon on a paddlefish setup.
What's the historic range of sturgeon?
Anywhere in the Columbia River Basin. So what my mind goes to is, I think is it the Kamei River that it's in northern Idaho, and I believe it connects to Montana. I might be misquoting the river. I have to think on that. But there
Yeah, I
is a
don't know.
river in northern Idaho where you're not even allowed to fish for them.
Hmm.
And they're protected. And the Fish and Game apparently did do a survey up there where they found a 10-footer in that river. And that river does connect over to Montana.
Wow. Well, they
Um,
would like, is it so before the dams were Noxon and everything, they'd go up the Clark Fork, which flows out into, that would flow up to Flathead.
mhm.
So they could go that way too. Um, that's a
Well, and
long way.
there is a very small population of whites in the Missouri. And
Oh,
on occasion, people who are fishing for shovel nose will hook one.
wow.
It's a very rare thing. Like, I was doing some research because I made a trip up to Great Falls to try and catch some shovel nose.
Hmm.
And the whites are so rare, they don't even try to educate people on it. It's just like, if you catch a fish over 40 inches, keep it in the water there.
Wow.
Um, so, and the main two that I did my research on was the shovel nose, and then I also heard that there was pallids there, which I ended up accidentally catching one of those as well. Um, but I did read up that there is like a very, very small population of white sturgeon that are surviving up there.
Crazy. Crazy. Um, how much does a good sized sturgeon weigh?
Depends on the state. So in
Okay.
Idaho, if we catch a 9-foot fish, that fish is generally somewhere between 300 and 400 pounds, depending on the girth.
Wow.
Up on the Columbia, they get significantly fatter, significantly larger. And I wouldn't put it past them to break the 700-pound mark up there. They just get mythically large. Like some of the, I hope I uploaded it. There's a picture of a 10-foot one that I caught on the Columbia, and my buddy's releasing it, and you can see the head in comparison to his torso, and that fish's head is nearly the entire size of his whole torso.
I might have that photo right here. Let's see.
That
Oh,
is an
no.
Idaho fish. I believe that one was 8 foot
Jeez.
11. But yeah, that's an excellent example of how large those fish can be in comparison. And I might have not uploaded it, but that is like a very excellent comparison of like the size of these fish to those people. So that fish being 9 foot one with a 47-inch girth, there is charts that you can plug that into both for Idaho and the Fraser, which I would compare the fish in Washington and Oregon more to the fish on the Fraser. Um, so that fish we estimated was right around 400 pounds.
Wow. That's why you're so strapped, man. You've got huge arms. You got to pull these big fish in.
Yeah, I try. A lot of that's genetics. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I've been hitting the gym here the last 5 or 6 months, and
Hmm.
like got some initial growth, and then just my genetics are skinny. So
Yeah. When when I was big into lifting in college, I found that if you eat 1 gram of protein per pound you weigh, that helps expedite things very quickly.
Yeah, yeah, that's I've been trying to do that. It helps, and then I do the creatine thing, and that's helped too.
Hmm.
Yeah, they've got studies coming out about how that helps your mind as well. So that's another reason I've been doing that.
Yeah, apparently it's huge for women too. Like a lot of women are
Yeah.
very deficient in creatine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this one's super dark, super
Yeah.
brown.
So that is a Hell's Canyon fish, and that is pretty standard for the fish that you're gonna find in Hell's Canyon. That is, I would say 90% of the fish that are in there are gonna be those really dark resident river fish. When they migrate to spawn, you're gonna find a few that are pretty light colored, and I would attribute that to fish moving out of the lower granite reservoir up into the river system to spawn.
Wow. How are you, without getting into too many trade secrets, how are you targeting big fish versus the probably thousands of smaller fish in the same river system?
Oh, so I found if you fish something pickled, you almost exclusively target smaller fish. So if you fish like pickled herring, pickled squid, you can like target the undersized quite a bit. The guys up in Oregon, when it comes to keeper season, that's pretty well exclusively what they fish is pickled squid. Versus the larger ones, like you will get like 3 and 4 footers that will still eat cut bait fish, but most generally the larger fish are going to just feed on cut bait. In Oregon, if they really try to high grade for the big ones, they'll fish whole American shad when the shad are running. Or I also know some people that will buy a whole Chinook salmon and then keep the receipt because in order for it to be legal to use as bait, you have to show proof that it was legally acquired. So you have to generally they'll go to the tribes, they'll buy a whole Chinook salmon, and then they'll whole bait that 10 to 15 pound salmon looking for like that 10, 11 foot sturgeon.
Wow. And they'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
100%. They like I have seen some underwater videos of people fishing those whole 3 pound shad, and you'll see a sturgeon swim along and zoop, just one bite sucks the whole thing in. There's on a
Gosh.
9 foot fish, like comparatively to my head, like a 9 foot fish's mouth is going to be about this big. So you think about like maybe bigger. You think about the head of a salmon only being this big, and their mouth is just a giant vacuum. Um, and the way that they bite is interesting. You'll get little trout bites on your rod tip. So you'll see a rod tip doing this.
All
You
right.
think for a fish that big, you'd expect something different. You'd expect like a full rod takedown or the whole rod to be moving. But the reason for that is because they swim over your bait, they suck it up, so it's not pulling it back. They're just sucking it straight up since their mouth is underneath their head. So
Okay.
they'll suck it straight up, and those little rod tips you're getting is from it chewing on it because your sinker is generally right here and it's trying to swallow that bait deeper. So it keeps on like sucking on it, chewing on it, and you get those rod taps. And
Interesting.
that's when you know to set the hook. My general rule is when you see 3 of those taps in a row, that's when you hit them.
Wow. Interesting. And they're bottom feeders, not really like um I guess actively hunting. They're picking dead stuff up.
Yes, but they are opportunistically predatory. So
Okay.
there's people that'll catch them on 360 flashers trolling for salmon. There's people who've caught them jigging. And like when we're catching bait on the CJ Strike Reservoir, we'll be vertical jigging on a school of bait fish, and we'll see sturgeon like swiping through the schools and scattering them.
Whoa.
Um, so and this is due to live scope, due to sonar. Because without sonar, it would be a lot harder for us to acquire bait. I mean, we're running through hundreds of bait fish a year, if even a month. Um, and we're lucky that we live in a place that sustains those populations. Like the for the bait fish that we use, the CJ Strike Reservoir has no limit on them because they are so prolific.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, we'll be vertical jigging them on live scope, and you'll see multiple sturgeon chasing the schools around. And on occasion, we'll actually accidentally hook one on our ultralight rods,
What
which
do you
never.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't end well.
Is it like so? Is it like you'll see these guys that go down to Amazon and they'll start small and then work their way up because they can't just go to the store and get big bait. Are you guys doing that? Are you getting bigger fish to then throw out for sturgeon kind of thing?
That's just kind of a Columbia thing. In Idaho, you 100% can whole bait a trout or a sucker fish or something like that. But really, the way that we do it is we'll find a group of them and we'll just we'll find the group, we'll park the boat probably 30 or 40 feet in front of them and cast down at them, and we don't use anything much bigger than a fillet, about that big.
Interesting.
And we still catch decent sized fish on a fairly regular occasion. And that might be due to the fact that we can see what's down there and we're only setting up on larger fish. Versus land based, like you cast out and you just kind of get what you get.
Yeah.
If you fish smaller chunks of bait, like definitely swap that out every 20 to 30 minutes and fish fresh bait. Or, if you just want to set it and forget it, yeah, dude, fish a whole trout, fish a whole sucker fish, put a little extra lead on there and just let it sit and see what you get. But in Oregon, just because I would say that overall there's a larger size class of fish. You could fish a 3 pound bait and still only catch 7 or 8 footers all day.
Wow.
So the only way to get past that is to fish a bait that is so abnormally large that only a fish with a giant mouth would be able to eat it.
Huh.
So it's very it's interesting because with sharks, like you'll fish 20, 30 pound baits and you can still catch like a 5 foot shark on it because it sat there and chewed on the bait and ate it down. Like
Wow.
sturgeon don't have that ability to like eat baits down. So you definitely can target the bigger fish with bigger baits. In Idaho, I don't think we have much of a need for that, but in Oregon, since they have so many more fish and so many more big fish, they will do that.
Interesting. So, what kind of pound tests and rod setup and everything do you have to have for one of these guys? Because obviously it's got to pull a lot of weight.
Yeah, here, I can grab one of my setups real quick. I'll show you.
Great.
My main setup that I like to use, this is an Akuma Lihos 16. That's
Jeez.
kind of the comparison to my size there. This is on a 7'2" Phoenix rod. This is the Axis casting rod, rated for 30 to 80 pound. Now I spool this reel with 130 pound braid or 150 pound braid, and then I do 80 to 100 pound monofilament top shot. That's only if I'm land based. Reason being, if you run straight braid land based and you push over 20 pounds of drag to that fish, that braid is going to cut itself and you're going to pop off.
Whoa.
So I've lost a lot of nice fish versus monofilament won't cut itself. It just sinks down on itself. So that's why I run the monofilament top shot from the bank, is because you get abrasion to rocks, and you can run more drag. The only downside is that the line picks up more tension in the current, so you have to fish more weight, and your hook set isn't as direct because that monofilament acts as a bungee cord.
Oh, okay.
Some other reels that I use this is an Avit or Avit, depending on where you're from. This is my LX6/3 Magic Cast. So this is another reel that I use. And if you're looking for something a little lower in the price point, these old Daiwa Saltist 50 level wines are absolutely awesome. These things are this is probably one of the best casting reels I have ever had.
Now, are these primarily saltwater reels for big fish that you're
Yes.
now using for sturgeon?
Yeah, so what I do is I look into the California bluefin tuna fishing scene. The
Okay.
reason that I do it is because a lot of those guys are going out on those boats to find boils of tuna, and they're casting or jigging for them. And you're casting for a fish that could potentially get 300 pounds, rip 20, 30 pounds of drag. And so that's something similar to what we do here. We're targeting 300 to 400 pound fish that can rip over 30 pounds of drag, in my experience. So you need a lot of line capacity, you need something that's castable, and you need something that puts out a lot of drag, which is really hard to find in a lot of reels. I've found in a boat, you don't need anything more than 20 pounds of drag. You can rock that, land just about any fish in the river in about 45 minutes. Land based, that's when you need that 30 to 40 pounds of drag in the extra line capacity, because you don't have the ability to chase it, and you have to put a lot more drag to that fish to turn it and get it to come back towards you.
Wow. Wow. How long are you fighting on land for some of these fish?
The land-based fights, I don't want to let go over 45 minutes as well. That's in the saltwater and the freshwater. That's just kind of my golden rule. I don't know why I picked that. I just think that if you fight a fish for longer than that, it's fighting it past exhaustion.
Ah,
Um,
yeah.
and you just like, if you can't bring in the fish in that amount of time, you just need to put the heat to it, and you're in a pop it or stop it situation.
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
like the largest fish we ever landed on a guided trip in the saltwater was a 13 to 14 foot hammerhead, and we had to put 70 pounds of drag to that fish. Um, and we
Jeez.
landed that in 42 minutes.
Wow.
But that's also why
Yeah.
you're fishing like the Cape Cod bluefin tuna reels, like 130 sized reels that are just ridiculous. But
Yeah.
I mean, hammerheads have a very high post release mortality. It's somewhere around like 48%. So if you have a hammerhead on, like pour the coals to them, and get them landed, and our company policy was no time for pictures, all releases in 120 seconds, but ideally 60 seconds.
Wow. Wow. So how are customers about that? Like, oh no, we don't have time for pictures.
Um, on the shark scene, like with the hammerheads and the tiger sharks, what we would do is, while we would have two guides per trip, so while one guide was at the head trying to get the hook out, we would rush the clients in and try to take a picture as the one guide is working on the release. And
Wow.
then the second the hook is out, the second guide that was already at the tail grabs the tail. First guide tells him the hook's out, and immediately is dragging that fish. Like, we never took it out of the surf, but he's
Mhm.
immediately dragging it into deeper water. And if the clients want, they can hold the tail as we release it and get videos and pictures of them holding the tail. But that's just with the tigers and the hammerheads. Also, the great whites, I didn't catch one of those on a charter. I caught one of those on my personal time. But all three of those are protected, regulated species where the legality is like no delay on releases, keep the fish wet, get it back in the water. And so that was just our policy: is while we're working on the release, they can snap a few pictures, and then we have to get it back in. With sturgeon, the in Idaho, the it's a very similar legality around it. It's must be released upon capture and cannot be removed from the water. So the way that we do that is, if it's a decent, we hook into it, it feels like a big fish, immediately the boat's going to the shore.
Mm.
We get to the bank, and then we fight it and land it from the bank, get the hook out. There's nothing wrong with snapping a quick picture. Like, Idaho Fish and Game is fine with taking a quick picture and then putting them back. They're more concerned with just taking the fish out of the water. But if you
Mm.
look at the Idaho Fish and Game's website, like, the sturgeon pictures they have on there is of their techs, like, literally holding the fish entirely out of the water.
Yeah, right.
So we just have to take it, like, there's not, as long as a part of that fish is touching the water, even if it's just the tip of the tail fin, legally there's nothing that they can do. But we just take it upon ourselves as guides to keep the fish wet and get it back quickly, because those fish are our livelihood.
Yeah, sure. I got one video that you sent here that I wanted to play a little bit of. That was kind of cool.
Uh,
Where you
yeah,
see him
that's
like,
the
look at
yeah.
that, like a monster in the deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was the clip that started it all for Joe and I. That was the one that got me a large majority of my social media following. Um, got him and I quite a bit of exposure, and that specific clip was actually on my bachelor party. Um, I was getting married about a month later from there, and a bunch of my friends were camping out on the river, and Joe decided to come over and hang out with us for a night and take us sturgeon fishing. That was my friend Atticus in the video. And we just happened to hang into that one. I think it was either 9 foot flat or 9 foot one. But it was just a whale of a fish. And yeah, I got that shot. And every time I post that on social media, it does very well. So
Is that a
that clip right
drone?
there. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, gosh, what a fish! What a fish! There's another one.
Yeah, so this is the Columbia. This was the first 10-foot fish I ever caught.
Wow, look at that guy. Jeez, and he comes all the way out of the water.
Yeah, yeah, they're athletic. I call them mile high marlin just because they do jump quite a bit. Some fish more than others. There's some that'll jump 7 times during a fight. They'll act like a tarpon. And then there's others that just will stay on bottom. They'll stay low and heavy and make you lift up dead weight. Well, not dead weight because they fight pretty good, but they'll make you work to try and get them off bottom. So each fish is different. You never really know what you're gonna get, but it's always fun. They fight hard. They jump. They give clients a show. They get to get those awesome pictures with them. They're like the perfect fish to guide for, I would say, because their post release mortality in the studies I've seen is like 1% or less. The
Wow,
only
that's pretty
thing
cool.
I've the only thing I've ever seen really hurt those fish is warm water. If you get water that's breaking over 70 degrees, don't touch them. Don't fish for them. Go to where there's colder water.
Yeah.
Um, like I've seen them survive. Some of our guides have like seen them survive getting caught in trawl nets and their legs cut off or their tails cut off, and they'll still swim off and they'll be recaptured without a tail.
Wow.
There's ones that have whole chunks of their nose taken out from a prop. Um, there is like even when I go up to Oregon for keeper season, we would catch them and then you'd hit them with the salmon bonker bat, and then you would cut both of their gills, and then you would toss them on a stringer for the next 8 hours, and then you would throw them in the boat and then drive 15 minutes back to the boat ramp, and then 45 minutes back to my buddy's house where we were staying at, and then he would go to fillet them and they're still alive.
Wow. That's a hardy fish.
Yeah. And there's been other fish that I've seen videos of them being caught on the Columbia that both of their gills were cut and they had a line through their mouth and their gill. So a poacher was trying to take it, and
Yeah, yeah.
somehow it got away, like the line got cut or untied or something. And someone recaptured that fish with the rope still through its mouth and its gill, with both of its gills cut, and it's still swimming around.
Wow. So what is the best time of year to go after sturgeon?
Um, Generally, it's 24/7, three. Like you can catch them literally any day of the year. Right now, currently in Idaho, we're not fishing the CJ Strike Reservoir, which is where I think some of the largest in the state are. But that's because it's a reservoir. There's not a lot of flow, and the water temps are well over 70 degrees. So we're not touching that place with the 10-foot pole.
Hmm.
But when water temps cool down, so like September through October, even through the winter, through February, it's really good. If you're land based, like in Idaho, the time of year is like, I would say March and April when they're moving to spawn and they're coming up into the river. So they're going to be a lot more concentrated. There's certain holes where you can find them, and there's times when they're moving up in schools of 500. So if you're fishing a hole in the river where you can realistically like cast halfway across that river, and you get a school of 500 fish that moves in, it's gangbusters. It's just absolutely stupid.
I can't imagine that many like big fish in an area in a river.
Well, we
Crazy.
had a kid from Montana, a kid from Great Falls come down, and he fished land based with my buddy Zach and I one day. And I think we hooked five and landed, no, we hooked seven and landed five in one day. And that wasn't even like that was a great day of land based fishing, don't get me wrong. But that wasn't like the insane day of like you're putting out a bait and it's getting bit every like 5 minutes kind of fishing. And I think his biggest was 8 foot two, and he had one that was fairly large that ended up breaking off. But that was all in the span of a day. It was hooking seven and landed five, and he was supposed to stay for another 2 days, and he ended up going home. He's like, I caught my fish. My arms are tired. I'm gonna call
Yeah.
it.
God, yeah, you got to be pretty fried by the end of going for one of those. Like 45 minutes straight of
Yeah, and it's a lot of forearms. It's a lot of like right in your back,
yeah,
and it's a lot of lower back as well as you're pulling back and
yeah,
reeling down. I mean, and on the boat, like there's some days where you'll have some clients in the boat, you'll catch five in a row, and they're like, "All right, we're good. Trip's over." And they're like, "We have 3 hours left," and they're like, "Nah,
yeah,
we're good."
yeah. Jeez. And so, wow, that's crazy. We're 10 minutes from the top of the hour right now. You want to keep going, or you want to take a break, or how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good to keep going.
Cool. All right. We can segue a little bit into. I had some kind of general questions that I wanted to get into. One of them was, what is kind of your dream? Because I had mentioned earlier, kind of like doing, like a what do you call it? Like a collab video or something, going after
Hmm.
something up here, just because. But what is your dream fish to go after that? I don't want to say like exists or not, but like something that just any fish in general, whether it's like something that could or could not exist, like sturgeon in Montana, in the Clark Fork or something, or something as basic as, I mean, not basic, but like stingray in the Amazon or whatever. What's your dream fish to go after?
Oh wow. Um, the top two that I've had my sights set on for quite a while is an arapaima and a Goliath tigerfish.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
arapaima, man.
yeah, my buddy David Graham with Boundless Pursuit, he has connections with a lodge in Guyana for the arapaima, and he also just made a trip to the Congo for the Goliath tigerfish. So he has connections for lodges at both of those places. And overall cost on that trip is like $4,000 or so. So that's
That's not
something
bad.
that, I do want to pinch my pennies and take some time to go do someday. It's something that gives my wife a lot of anxiety. Thought of me
Yeah,
going and doing, especially the Congo.
yeah, yeah,
But being with an official lodge, you know that they have to keep things relatively safe for their customers if they want to
sure.
bring people in. So those two are probably my lifetime fish. That, or as far as locally, I want a land-based Idaho 10-foot sturgeon. That would be probably the highest difficulty of fishing, like the largest unicorn that I could chase here at home.
Sure.
Because you can do land-based 10 foots in Oregon. I would say if you gave yourself a decent amount of time, you could get it done land-based in Oregon. But for here in Idaho, a land-based 10 foot would be one of only a handful of fish that exist in the state. So I think that would also be a true unicorn to get in my home waters.
Wow. Wow. Now, why is that? Just because there's not that many of that size fish there?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple in Hell's Canyon that are in a place that's very hard to get to. And then as far as Idaho goes, I think that there's only been three or four caught here in southern Idaho. The state record is at 10 feet 4 inches and a half, but the largest fish that's been caught is 10 feet 5 inches and a half. It's actually the same fish. It was just caught 3 years apart and it grew an
Uh,
inch. The one downside is that in Idaho, in order to break the catch and release state record, you have to break it by 2 inches so that they know it's legit.
Ah,
So even though they caught that same fish and it was an inch longer, it's going to need to be another inch longer before it breaks the record.
uh,
And there's another fish that the guides call CJ, and they caught her multiple times when she was at like 9 foot 11. And the last time she was caught, she was at like 10 foot flat. So, and I think that there's another one that's around like 10 foot 1 or 10 foot 3. So there's like 3 or 4 known 10 footers that have been caught in southern Idaho. And I think like 2 or 3 maybe up in Hell's Canyon. So of the fish that are known to exist and be attainable in Idaho, like you're hoping for 7 out of like 8,000 fish.
well, yeah, not a lottery there.
Yeah.
I
And
think
then
I think.
the,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, and you also have to think that pretty every single time those fish have been caught, it's been out of a boat. So
Mm.
I would go as far as to argue that, like, verified on the record, there has not been a land-based 10-foot sturgeon caught in the 20th century.
Wow. What
Um,
would it take to do that? If you wanted to go do that, like time, money, what would it require for you to get that done?
um, time is, I have no idea. A lot. you,
Yeah, yeah.
you you would probably have to live on the bank for about a year. Um, it's probably going to happen in the CJ Strike Reservoir unless you get someone who knows where those fish live in Hell's Canyon, because when they're in a river system, they tend to have like a stretch where they hang out where you can find them on a semi-regular basis. So you would either have to find someone who would be willing to put you in a jet boat and drive you up the river and drop you off somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Hell's Canyon, to fish for however long until you got it done. Or in southern Idaho, you would just have to fish CJ Strike Reservoir for however long. I couldn't even give you a timeline. You would be weeding through so many fish. And honestly, like, to cut time down, you probably would want to do Hell's Canyon, so you would know that like this fish is somewhere in this stretch of river
Yeah.
instead of this entire giant lake of a reservoir where there's also like probably 4,000 other sturgeon.
Wow. Yeah.
And like I said, like my Akuma Lihos, I have no doubts that that reel would get it done land based, or even upsizing to like a 20 size. Um, and I mean, you could cast from the bank or you could kayak baits, one of the two. Um, but I mean, money, it's not going to cost you a lot. Hell's Canyon's probably going to be more expensive for the jet boat ride and the food, but
Yeah.
it's just the longer it takes, the more expensive it is. And I
Sure.
mean, I've chased that fish for years, and there was one fish that I hooked that I never was able to stop. I was only able to stalemate him once before he broke me off. And that was in the reservoir. And that fish, I still wonder, what that fish was, how large it was, because I scaled my reel at the end after I popped it off, and my reel was at 35 pounds of drag after the line broke.
Wow. Wow. I think one of my top ones right now would be Timon in Mongolia.
Mm.
Yeah, that's we'll do.
Going for Taman,
Timon. Yeah,
one, yeah,
yeah.
which,
What? Get out of here.
yeah, those things are just mythically large.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, yeah. That's a cool fish. Yeah, and
And
the trip too.
what is the numbers on a trip like that? Like, I've never looked into Taman.
Uh, I have a lead on that one. I will let you know when I have that one figured out. But there's a gentleman here who I've been meaning to get in contact with, actually, to do a podcast with. And he's got, I think, a lodge on Christmas Island, and then he's done a bunch of stuff in Mongolia. I don't know if he's like partners with it or something, but I don't know. But anyways, he's the guy to talk to about that. And yeah, that's up there on the list. So when that goes through, I'll let you know. Maybe we can go on
Okay.
that one together.
Yeah, maybe that would be pretty cool. And
Yeah,
I feel like that is like the embodiment of adventure is, I mean, you're going to a completely different continent, people
yeah,
that speak a different language, to completely foreign waters, to, try and achieve this goal. And I think that is the big allure to fishermen is,
yeah,
um diving into the unknown for something that is difficult yet attainable.
yeah.
And there,
Have you been to Asia yet?
no, I've yet to go to Asia. I mean, there's some Japan stuff that I think is cool. Like, I think if you were to try for tiger sharks in Japan, there is
Oh,
some absolute giants over there, and there just isn't really like a LBSF scene over there. Tayman is a big one. Mossir is a big one. Like golden Mossir, I think would be really cool. Um, the sad part about Mossir is I just hear that keeps on going south. Like they're desperately trying to save those populations. Um, I think it's like the Thailand giant freshwater stingray, like the one that Jeremy Wade went and did.
yeah.
Yeah, there's the Mossir. Apparently they fight just ridiculously hard. Um, and a lot of guys will go there and fly fish for them. Um,
Wow, that'd be a cool one.
but yeah, I think some of the cooler ones, Mekong catfish is not realistically doable. Like you would probably have to go to pay ponds for the Mekong. But like the Taiwan, like giant freshwater stingray is doable. Like the Mossir and the Taiman are all like super super high up on the list Asian species.
Wow, very very
Without
cool.
Yeah, without trying to dive into like the saltwater stuff, which that's
Yeah,
all.
yeah. That's a whole nother can of worms there. And actually, we can get into a little bit of the shark stuff too if you want. Um, yeah, my wife and I did last year. We went to Thailand and backpacked around the country and stuff. Um, it's a super cool trip. We're thinking about. We were going to go again this year, but we just stuff with the house and everything. We just didn't have time or money to do it. But yeah, we're that's definitely on our list to get back there, back to Asia. Um, and for me, Mongolia is pretty far up the list just in general. So as far as like shark goes, what uh, would you say your personal best was for shark again?
So me personally on the rod and reel is a 12-foot dusky shark. The biggest that I saw running charters was somewhere between 13 and 14 feet.
Wow, that's a big fish.
hmm
That's
But
huge.
that's I also don't give an exact length on it just because it was a hammerhead and we didn't take the time to measure it. We
Sure.
just
What
got the hook out, got it back as quick as we could.
now are you pretty capable of targeting specific species of shark within reason, or is it kind of like you get what's in the area?
Depends on where you're at. I've noticed with the ocean, there's certain times and certain conditions that are conducive to that fish being more prevalent. But a lot of times it's just, you get what you get. You never really know. Like you could be out on a beach on a weather pattern and a moon phase that is conducive to hammerheads, but you could still catch a tiger shark, a bull shark, a black tip, like you name it. Like
Yeah.
you just kind of it depends on time and place. Like there's certain places actually that were shut down for great white fishing because the great whites were so prevalent. Like you can't fish Massachusetts uh, anymore because so many people were targeting great whites up there.
Wow. Hmm. Now,
So that
go ahead.
um, in California, there is a lot of great whites as well. And so, what the California government has done to try and cut down on people targeting them is they're starting to limit the kind of gear that you can use.
Hmm.
So that like the like they're like you can shark fish, you can target six gills and soup fin and stuff like that, but like you can only use XYZ gear that would lessen the chances of you landing a great white should you hook it.
Interesting. Well, now talking sturgeon and shark. Obviously, there's a lot of difference there between the two. But a lot of the gear, is it similar because of the size, or is there a whole different mindset when it comes to equipment for shark versus sturgeon?
Um, it's pretty similar, just bigger. Like with sharks, you have a fighting harness that you get locked into.
Hmm.
And with sturgeon, I don't think you need anything over like a 20 to 30 sized reel. With sharks, like if you're targeting the big ones, like you 100% need a 130 sized reel. Like when I shark fished, like I had a Markyra 130. That thing holds like 1,200 to 1,500 yards of 200-pound braid, and we would splice that to 200-pound monofilament top shot, and then we would put that to a cable leader. Like 200-pound braid to 200-pound mono. And then we had a cable leader to like around a 20 to 24-aught circle hook. So it's just bigger. Like I do land-based sturgeon the same. You do the monofilament top shot so that your connecting knot to your leader holds. Um, I tend to run FG knots for my connections just so it slides through the guides easier. Um, and yeah, it's dead baiting is dead baiting is dead baiting. So you're taking a chunk of what that fish is most likely to eat. You're going into areas that are known to have them, and you're fishing certain conditions and weather patterns that are conducive to either bringing the fish in or making them feed more. Like the two are pretty interchangeable. Just I would say shark fishing is much more expensive. Sturgeon fishing you can get into at a much lower price point, to the point where it kind of drives me crazy. Like if people want to get into shark fishing, you're like, "Hey, I'm looking for a reel that's only $300 or $400." Shark fishing guys will laugh at them. They're like, "You really think that you're gonna get a setup for that cheap?" Like, no, save your money and get something that's actually gonna do what you want it to. Whereas in sturgeon fishing, like for $400, you could get a decent setup. Like what drives me crazy is people can go out and spend $120 on a reel and catch one. Now they're not going to catch the fish. Like if they hook that 9 foot plus fish, like they're probably going to get their butt kicked and break off. But for the majority of fish, if you catch a 7 or 8 foot sturgeon, you can land it on dollar store tackle, but that's also going to be after like a 2 to 3 hour fight. So
Yeah.
that that's what drives me crazy is with lower price points, you get people getting into the sport who are going to do it more irresponsibly. Whereas for
Okay.
shark fishing, it's a much higher price point to get into it. And so with that much time and money invested, they're a lot more likely to respect the fish and respect the sport.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting point. Um, Kind of going back to travel fishing, um, going to various places on Earth. What are some of the things that you would need? Let's just say, like if you're planning to go to South America and fish the Amazon, and go for maybe red catfish or whatever. What are some things you're thinking about as far as equipment, as far as like, I mean, guide services for boats and whatever else? I know that's a kind of a big question depending on where on Earth, but like you as like a hardcore big fish fisherman, what are some of the gears in your mind going towards for those kind of trips?
Um, well, I think language barrier is a big one.
Hmm,
It's usually, and a lot of this stuff is who you know, not what you know. So a lot
sure.
of these places, like you show up to, and you have someone who already knows the fishery. Like I know very few people that just go to another country and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going in blind and I'll just figure it out." A lot of the travel fishing I've done is the footwork was done beforehand in the networking.
Yeah.
Is you meet someone who already lives there that is willing to put you on. And then as far as gear, two-piece rods are the way to go for big fish. And I would say most places that you go that you travel to, you can get it done on a spinning setup. Like most like bait caster setups, like large setups like this one, most of them are going to be one piece rods. I
Mm.
would suggest doing a two-piece rod with a spinning reel. That's going to be a lot easier to break down, a lot easier to travel with. But also know where you're fishing and look up the regulations. Because like Spain, you wouldn't know it. If you travel to Spain, you have to have all the line off your reel. You can't have the line spooled on your reel. You have to show up and put the line on your reel after you are through customs once you're in Spain. They won't let they'll if you show up to the airport with line on your reel, they make you take it off.
Whoa, why?
Maybe you're hiding contraband underneath the line. I don't know, but
That sounds like
that
Singapore.
yeah. Um, so like that's another big thing is making sure you're knowing where you're going and what you're getting yourself into.
Mm,
And that's another part of the networking.
sure.
That's another part of knowing who you're going with and what you're doing. And a lot of the travel fishing I've done has been with Spencer Wonder of Terra Firma Tackle. And
Mm.
that's just what he does is he networks all around the world so he can go and catch these fish. And a lot of times he just needs someone to come with him to document and do the thing.
Mm. No,
And so knowing him has been a huge connection because 90% of the time he'll already have done the footwork. He's like, I know this guy, he runs this lodge, he's willing to put us on. I just need someone who has both the time and the money to come with me and do this thing.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's a lot of who you know, not what you know. And if there's a certain trip that you have in mind that you want to do, look for people who have already done it, and then just ask them who they talk to,
Yeah.
and then kind of follow that breadcrumb trail into that. And like I said, if you're going after Arapaima, you can get it done on spinning gear. Um, Even like I forget if it's Lao or Zhao catfish, or even like the Goonch catfish in India, Goliath tigerfish. Like you look at a lot of the videos of guys doing that, it's all on spinning setups. Like
Hmm.
I watched
Oh. Right, we're back in.
okay. So we were talking travel setups. David Graham with Boundless Pursuit, I've seen him catch more on a Penn Spinfisher 10,500 on an ugly stick rod
Yeah.
than I've seen most people do. I mean, and it might have to do with the fact that he has it spooled with 200-pound braid. So
Mm.
maybe it's just like the stuff that he hangs into literally cannot break that pound test of line. Um, but I've seen it work. I've seen him catch goonge catfish. I've seen him go to South America and catch the Zhao. He came to Idaho and like his second sturgeon ever was a land-based 9 foot two. Like he went and
What?
did like Goliath tigerfish, like, and it's all in the same setup. Like,
What?
yeah.
Heck
So
yeah.
aside from like chasing that trophy like 10-foot sturgeon, um, you can catch most of the largest freshwater species in the world just on a decent sized spinning setup and a two-piece spinning rod. Um, and
Yeah.
I mean, you name it, you look at his page, he's done it. He's also done Wells Catfish, he's done Gator Gar. Like at this point, he has checked off, besides the Mossir, he has checked off pretty well every large game freshwater species in the world, besides like the giant freshwater stingrays.
Wow. That's crazy. Have I shown you my picture of the huge grass carp I caught um on a little 5 weight fly rod?
Oh, let's see it. Grass
Yeah,
carp do get extremely large.
this was huge in a it was in a little pond, but um stand by. I gotta go to my Facebook because I'm gremlins in the computer, man. I don't know
Oh,
what's
you're
going on.
good.
It's unreal. Um, let's see. I've got it pretty far back. Yeah, man. It's kind of funny talking about going to travel in Asia and other places. That's kind of how I like to do it. Is go in blind a little bit. There's nothing like when my wife and I went to Thailand. There's nothing like you've got your backpack on your back. You step into another country and all of a sudden your phone doesn't work anymore. You can't call anybody, text anybody. You can't read a single thing on any sign anywhere. It's like, yeah, it's a whole different world. Here, we'll have to do it this way.
Oh, that thing's a tank.
Dude, he wrapped around me too, so you can't see his full length, but I think I've got another one here.
Oh, wow. That's a big one. Was that up in Montana?
That was in Missouri.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we were coming across the country, like running away from the storms. That was right before that night we got hit by a literal tornado that was like 5 miles away, tore up this town called Jefferson City back in 2019 or something. It was all over national news. Several people died and everything. We were right there, camping out, and it was like that night we went fishing in this little pond that was in the back there, and I think I fought that guy for 20 minutes or so, and I'd like just had my travel clothes on, so I had a nice shirt. I threw that shirt off because I didn't want to get it all muddy and gross because I had to get out in there into the muck with him to pull him up. And then that night it was like the sky fell out, boom, right midnight or so, and it was so heavy, so much rain, so much wind all at once. It came like through the tent. The waterproofing was just destroyed, and we ended up like chucking everything into the trailer in the back of the truck, or 2 trucks that we had, and we got the hell out of Dodge, man. And it was so dark and so awful that we couldn't see, like my trailer at the time lit up like a Christmas tree, right? And my brother, who was in another vehicle chasing us, he couldn't see the lights until he was like 5 foot from the back of the trailer. It was so awful. And we just drove like that until probably 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and ended up just booking a hotel just to stay the night. It was insane. And then the next day, or stay the morning, we were in there for probably 3 or 4 hours. And then the storm was coming our way still. So we ended up getting back in the vehicles and driving further. And we made it all the way to, and we didn't know the tornadoes or anything were a deal until we made it all the way to the edge of one of the Dakotas. And we were right outside the Badlands. We stayed in a hotel there that my mom got for us. And we came down the next morning for breakfast and stuff. And on the news, it was talking about Jefferson City being like just leveled. And we were like, ugh! We were like right there. That's what we were running through pretty much. So that was a kind of a crazy fish story.
Wow. Death by grass carp.
Death. Right. Yeah, it was crazy, insane. So did you have any other topics that you wanted to jump into before we go into question period, which it takes a long time, so we can get into other stuff while we're in it. But did you have any other topics you wanted to talk about before?
No, not really. I'm kind of an open book, so anything people want to know about me, I'm more than happy to put out there.
Awesome. Well, jumping right off that crazy fishing adventure story, the first question I have is from Nanette. She is asking, what is the craziest weather conditions you've fished in?
It would either be that blizzard where it snowed about 8 inches on us, and I caught that 9-foot one. There was another time, like I used to just sleep on the riverbank in the winter when I was young, and sturgeon fish, and like you can tell I was young and stupid because I had little to zero forethought about this. Like, wouldn't check the weather. Turns out it would be like 8 degrees outside, and I'd be out there in cowboy boots, denim jeans, and like a sweatshirt.
Heck yeah.
Or there was some times when we were shark fishing when the waves would get 5 to 6 feet. And you're sitting in a kayak, so your torso is only like 2 to 3 feet. So if it's a 6-foot wave, the top of that wave is 3 feet above the top of your head coming at you in a kayak. And there was one night, me and the other guides decided to do some personal fishing. And my buddy got a run and it dropped it. We didn't know if it stole the bait, so we waited like 30 or 40 minutes. And he reeled his rod in and it did steal the bait. there was three of us guides. Me and the other guide had already caught one. The third guide was pretty new, and he really wanted to catch a shark that night, but the waves were so big and nasty that he didn't want to kayak. And during the day, you can generally read the waves. Like you look 3 sets of waves out for your gap, and then you'll time it. So when one wave breaks, you start counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then you see when the next wave breaks. So you spot your gap, and then you wait for the timing of that wave to break, and you're like, okay, so after this wave breaks, I'm going to have 30 seconds to make it to that gap before I get smashed by the next wave. And you can do that during the day. At night, you just put your head down and paddle and you pray.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're taking kayaks out to drop the bait and then coming back into shore?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it was the middle of the night. The waves were like 6 feet. It was a washing machine. And you can't like see what's coming at you. You kind of just got to go by faith. And I remember I was like, you know what? Like, you're new. You really want a shark? I'll kayak your bait. And the other guide who'd guided a little bit longer, like, pulled me aside. He was like, are you sure that this is worth it? And I was like, yeah, whatever. It'll be fine. Young and dumb.
Yeah.
And I remember going out and a wave hitting me and completely submerging me and the kayak. It didn't knock me out of it because it landed flat on top of me, and it pushed me and the kayak down. And I remember popping up first and then feeling the kayak float up and meet me right after. And I remember making it past that last wave. It was like a second timing. If I had been a second behind, that wave would have took me and rolled me and smashed me. But I made it just barely over the crest of that wave, and then I rode it down the backside of the wave. Like, it was large enough and the pitch was steep enough that I was able to ride down the backside of the wave out past the breakers. And so I made it out, and then dropped the bait and came back in. And coming in is also the tough part, because generally coming in, you also have to pick your gap, which you can't see. So coming in, I just tried to get as much speed as I could, picked me up, shot me down the front side of the wave, and I made it past the second set of breakers, and then I got rolled at the first set of breakers, but I was close enough to shore. I was just able to like pop up and grab my kayak and walk back in. And the guys are like, dude, we didn't think you were making it back. And I was like, well, that's how you know Jesus is real. I'm still here.
That's right.
He saved me from my own idiocy. So there's that. And the one other time I can think of was the first time I ever shark fished. We were in South Florida. And my buddy had just caught like a 10-foot tiger. I personally really wanted a shark. So I was trying to take out one last bait when there was a thunderstorm coming in. And I remember that the thunder was so intense that when I went to drop the bait, it thundered and I could see it like shake the water around me. It was like right over the top of me, and we were seeing lightning come in. And I've never paddled so fast to get back to shore. Young and dumb. I did a lot of stuff that I should not have shark fishing.
That's awesome. Dude, young and dumb weather stories seem to be like, yeah, we got quite a few of those. I've done similar things with when I've been hunting and been in just really stupid situations. And in the survival, we did some stuff that we shouldn't. One time I was out duck hunting. Awesome duck hunt. It was like my first big duck hunt ever, with some buddies down on the Tennessee River, on Lake Gunnersville. That's where we were. And it was so cold that year. There was like ice all on the shore and everything. And we're on this little, like, it was an inlet that, like, there was an island out here, and the river came in, and it was, several hundred yards to the other side from the island out, maybe a half mile or something, a huge area, right, of the lake. And this little island, and probably 300 yards between where we were in this marsh and the island in this little inlet here. And they were coming right out from the wood line over top of us, over top of that inlet between the island and where we were in the marsh. And I mean, just hammering. There were hundreds and hundreds of birds. Mostly, I forget the name of them. Starts with a W. Anyways, they so we were hitting them pretty hard, and I was a shit shot in those days. Um, and I mean, even I got just we limited out on multiple species within an hour, and they ended up going to go get more shells to come back. It was just unreal. But we didn't have a dog to go after these birds, and they would come down in the middle there between the island and the whatever. So we had a little kayak that I had brought with me. It's a little, it's a sit inside, not a sit on top. So if you go, you're drowned. And I had these huge wader boots on, and so like they about had to shove me into the boat to get me to fit in there, because this is tiny little like whitewater kayak that I have, and so no skirt on it or anything, just open. And I was the dog, so we'd shoot a bird down and I'd go out and get him, and be chasing him around, and it must have been like 5 degrees outside or something. It was so cold. And I remember going after one bird, and the wind started coming up really bad. And like he was still running, he was still alive, right? So I went to go for him, and he ended up like right just at the edge of my reach. And I tried to reach just a little more, and the end tipped up and water came in. I was like, oh crap, and started trying to overcorrect. And I think I ended up making it, but half of the thing was flooded with water. And the only thing that probably kept me from freezing was the fact that I had my waders on inside the boat. But just, man, the environment is what gets you, man. It's not people think it's like, oh, the animals or the snakes or the bugs or what. No, it's the environment is what kills you first. That's why the survival freeze, right? That's 3 days without water, but you can only do an hour without or 3 hours without shelter, they say. So they say. The next question I have got is kind of along the same lines. This is Joe. He's asking the most difficult fish you've ever gone after and were successful. The best fight, the most memorable.
The most difficult.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot to kind of roll through and unpack there.
Yeah.
I mean, the longest one that I chased was a 10-foot sturgeon. From the second I caught a fish, I'd been chasing that 10-foot mark. Another one was the Persian sturgeon, which we found over in Belgium. And full disclosure, like, there's not wild water. You have water that people own, that they put certain fish species that no longer exist in the wild that you can go catch. So we went to one of those places because I'd seen this thing called a Persian sturgeon, beautiful, like black and gold coloration. And we fished for 7 days in this little pond where apparently they were, and I caught one.
Wow.
And it might have just been because those fish had seen a lot of hooks, or it was late in the season, XYZ. Then I got lucky and I caught a Gulf sturgeon, which you're not supposed to target. So I was out in that area catfishing, and I catfished out there for, I want to say 72 hours straight, and didn't catch one. Caught nothing. And so I went back to that area, and I tried a different weather pattern, and I ended up not catching any catfish, but I lucked to a Gulf sturgeon, which apparently were super rare. And so that was probably like my rarest catch, was lucking into one of those. But yeah, the Gulf sturgeon was super cool, super rare. But as far as like just grinding it out, sitting in crappy conditions, I have a lot of stories of those, but I'd stick to the 10-foot sturgeon, just because there's so many days that you sit there, you get rained on, so many days you get skunked, so many days you're sitting there in the snow or freezing, and you just don't feel like you don't even feel like changing the bait, but you keep fishing, just trying to get that fish, and then eventually for it to actually finally happen. And right now, the biggest thing that I'm chasing and trying to hawk down is an Idaho like 10-pound brown trout.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I haven't had much luck. The biggest one we've touched is like 24, 25 inches, which I think is a decent brown, but it's not the one I'm looking for. So that's currently what I'm chasing in the home waters, is a big brown.
Nice. Nice. You kind of answered one of the questions I had, which was the luckiest catch. Sounds like that Gulf sturgeon was that. Another one I have from Bob. He's asking, what um, what is your, I don't know what his question exact. Let me translate that question. Um, I think he's asking what you answered it earlier, like why did you get into sturgeon? But what is it about big fish in particular? Bob's asking that. What is it about big fish that really gets you going? Why? Just because, I mean, you can fish for all kinds of things. Why is it big fish?
Originally, it was pride. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Originally, it was just the whole masculine of like, I caught something bigger than you. This is what I do on the regular. Um, and what it's turned into is, I mean, not only a ministry, just because I feel like when I'm on the bank with people, like you get to have some very good conversations about life and about belief.
Mhm.
Um, but on top of that, like unless I'm chasing my next record, I don't really like fight fish for myself anymore. It's more of the joy that it gives other people, because you can go out and have a great day on trout and someone will be really excited, or bass, or XYZ, but you put someone uh on a 7-foot fish that prior to their biggest fish was only 5 or 6 pounds, and seeing just like the pure shock and awe it
Yeah.
gives them, that is addicting to me. So it started out as something that was prideful, something that I was kind of using to like pat myself on the shoulder for. And the more I did it and the better I got at it, the more it turned into an opportunity to just give other people joy. And that's why I continue to do it and continue to chase these things, is because if I get it figured out, then the next person that comes to me who wants to do it, I can help out and give them that experience and that joy.
Oh yeah. Now, and you're a pretty religious guy too, and I think I think for most fishermen in general, it's kind of a spiritual thing. I mean, there's a reason that fish and fishing are so integral in pretty much every religion on earth, no matter how remote you go. Is that for you? Is fishing kind of like a spiritual journey kind of thing?
Um, Sort of. I think God has shown up in the outdoors. But to me, I think at one point I almost worshipped it as a false god, like
Mm.
worshiping the painting, not the painter.
Oh, sure.
Um, to where like, and I think it comes down to a matter of priority. Like my priority was to go out and catch that fish so that I could boost my own pride. Versus now, I think that the priority is to give other people joy, and to spread the good news when I can. Like it helps build those relationships so that we can have those conversations. Um, and God has saved me from myself in the outdoors more times than I can count. And He's also given me like some absolutely crazy experiences that I can only attribute to divine intervention. Like some things that were just straight lucky, and I can't really attribute it to luck after it happens a certain number of times. um, like the first badger I ever got, I had talked to my friend earlier that day about wanting to get a badger, and then it happens a few hours later. And then same with my first bobcat, and then same with my buddy's first 160 class mule deer, and then same with my first steelhead through the ice. Um, and then there was another time I was out sturgeon fishing in my buddy's boat, and we were probably 3 or 4 miles downriver from the ramp, and we decided to start coming back up the river, and our motor dies. And so we have to park the boat. We row the boat over to the side of the river. While he's working on the motor, I decided to cast out a sturgeon rod. We ended up hooking a sturgeon in a spot that I didn't think there was any. And it towed us to this one guy's beach. We landed it on this one guy's beach. The guy comes down, sees that we caught one, starts talking to us, sees that we have the top off of our motor and that we're working on it. And then he's like, hey, I launch my boat here all the time. Why don't I back down my boat trailer? We'll put your boat on it, and then I can drive you to the boat ramp, and then we'll just swap boat trailers. So in my mind, it was crazy the fact that A, that we even hooked a fish in that spot, and that B, it took us to the exact place where we would get the help that we needed to get back to the boat ramp. And I've had a lot of those experiences where at a certain point I can't chalk it up to just random happenstance. Another time I had my friend who was out muskie fishing and he lost his phone in the bottom of his lake. 2 months later, he randomly gets it in the mail. And it has a God will never forsake you cover on it when it didn't have that on it before. And apparently what he tracked down what happened is someone found his phone in the lake and threw it into a random person's backyard. And that person found the phone, fixed it, got it charged, saw whose it was, knew a friend of the guy, and then got it to him. And so it's, to me, I'm like, okay, like you can run, I don't even know what the numbers on that is, like what the statistics, but to me, being a man of faith, like I at a certain point, like I just stopped saying that things are random because these things just keep happening. There we are.
You might have to listen to me through the computer because apparently that just battery died. Dude, I don't know what's going on. Like all this stuff was charged. It just something's going on. Talk about crazy happenings, man.
Yeah.
Something's happening with all my equipment. And yeah, that was crazy, man. And that stuff happens. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of that happen too. And yeah, there's more than just us going on in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the last, it is the last question I've got. This is from Chris, and he is asking, what is, like, of all fish, what is the most fun for you to go after?
Oh, the most fun. That would
Yeah.
probably be topwater amberjack.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, kind of a random thing, I know. But there's when I guided in Florida, there was a wreck somewhere about 20 miles off the coast. It was in a place where it was only like 20 or 30 feet down. So we would go to the wreck with a bunch of bait fish. And you would bounce them off the boat so that they would act like they were hurt and they'd sit there and swim around on the surface.
Okay.
And you'd see the amberjack come up from like 20 to 30 feet off the wreck and start eating the little bait fish on top. And then you'd throw what's called a popper, which is a lure like this, and it's got a big like divot on the inside of the front of it. So you cast, and then when you retrieve it, you pull your rod, and it shoots a whole big splash of water. So when they start coming up on the bait fish, you'll start chucking your popper, and you'll watch like a 30, 40-inch fish just blow up on your topwater lure. And they, pound for pound, they are like, amberjack are like the hardest fighting fish I've ever found. Like, you want to talk about a fish that is only 30 or 40 inches but can pull 20 pounds of drag, that's an amberjack.
Wow.
And you have to fish them on lock drag, because if they go 20 feet down into the wreck, you're done. They pop you off.
Yeah, they're gonna tangle up and things and stuff too.
Yeah. So an amberjack on topwater is probably like the most fun that I've had, especially on the days when it's really good, when you can get quite a few of them, and you'll see them like swiping at your lure before one finally just crushes it. Sometimes right at the side of the boat. There's an old video I'll have to try and dig up. It was a reel that Coastal Worldwide put out. And it doesn't show the whole day, but it shows some of it. But some of the most fun fishing I've ever done. I mean, if you want to talk about a fish that absolutely does everything you want, blows up on top water, fights super hard, is gonna make you sore the next day, like it's an amberjack. And to people that haven't caught an amberjack, or in California, their version is like a yellowtail. In Australia, I think they call them a salmon, which is odd, but
Yeah, interesting.
to anyone who hasn't done it, I would highly suggest it. It's immaculate.
Immaculate. Very, very cool. I was going to try to pull up your Facebook thing, but I don't know what's going on, but my Facebook won't log in. I'm telling you, man, like it's everything I touch.
The gremlins, dude.
Apparently. Wow. Yeah, I would not have guessed that, but that's true. They're a lot of fun. I've never gone for, I don't think we did topwater. I think we were deep sea when we caught some of those. And just got lucky. But anyways, dude, I think that's the end of it then. I do want you to mention while we're on air some of the places people can find you guys, because since I can't pull it up for whatever reason, find what you're doing and how to get in touch with you in Idaho to go do some fishing stuff through your guide, if that's something you guys can share or you can share in your private stuff. I don't know what your limitations are there.
Oh yeah, I can share whatever. So my personal stuff, you guys can find me on Facebook or Instagram. The title of my pages is Rip and Run Outdoors. So RIP space capital N apostrophe space run outdoors. And then the guide service that I work for, if you guys are interested in booking a trip, catching salmon, steelhead, sturgeon, walleye, bass, trout, you name it, is Jones Sport Fishing. And we run in southern Idaho, anywhere from American Falls to CJ Strike Reservoir. We also run in Hells Canyon, on the Snake River, on the Clearwater, and out at Buoy 10 in Astoria. So we do a little bit of it all. If you're looking for fishing in Pacific Northwest, Jones Sports Fishing gotcha. We do a little bit of everything.
Awesome, man. The last thing I wanted to ask you was, where would you like to be in like 5-10 years? I mean, do you want to get to a point where you've got your own show, or your YouTube takes off, whatever? What are your goals or your future plans?
I'm not too sure. I just kind of gotta trust that God's gonna guide me to where I need to be, because I'm looking at having a whole family of my own, at being a father soon, and I have to think of not just me in that scenario. Like, I have to think of how my wife and my kids are going to fit in that. And I wonder if I have a TV show, how much I'm really going to be home. Or it, like, I think that full-time YouTube would be sustainable, assuming that I would be able to do it in like a weekend or two, which would be really nice. But to be honest, I have no idea what it looks like. Would I like to be full-time social media? I think that would be great, because I think that there's an exponential bell curve for the amount of money that you can make, and the opportunities that get presented. But I'm not sure what form it takes, just because I want my wife and my kids to be able to fit into that picture. And if they don't, then I'm willing to let go of that path in exchange for something else.
Very, very cool. Well, man, I appreciate you being on here with me. It was a pleasure. We could probably talk for hours and hours and hours, man. And we should try to get out and go fishing sometime.
For sure. Well, let me know when you're down this way, and we'll try to get you plugged in.
We'll do. And you the same up here. And yeah, I'll try to make a trip out there, and we'll do it. So hang out after this when we get off. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been Trail North Podcast.